Absolute Green Lantern issue 8, Al Ewing writing with Janai. Actually, it's not Janai Lindsay. I didn't change the artist.
It's not Janai Lindsay.
No, it's not. Because I noticed it was a different artist. I just didn't write down the artist change.
It is SID KOTIAN.
There you go. That's the one. So yeah, this is following up finally from kind of the like, oh, Joe's here in Cameron Chase's apartment, and some actually having some conversations. Now it sounds like she's told her the main beats of the story, as it were. But the issue actually starts with this other character who I'm not sure if this is meant to be someone from DC Comics.
It is
the scientist.
You're talking about the scientist. That's Mento, who was Beast Boy's adoptive dad. Yep.
Yeah, I would never have said that in a million years, but I just because they said his name and I'm like, I feel like this is probably a character that I meant to know.
What got me is the device. It was called the Mento device, and so I was like, I just did a quick Google of Mento, and it came up as the name. Where was it at here? Because I don't know it off the top of my head. Steve Dayton. And so once that came, I was like, oh, okay, so we're doing Doom Patrol things, and then it took a turn.
Yeah, because it's almost like he's tapping into the like the Mojo is coming voice kind of thing, and it's actually speaking to him with this device, this mental helmet, very very Doc Brown Back to the Future kind of big helmet with all these cables attached to it, and his friend shows up at the door, comes in, and scientist is very skeptical and paranoid. He's got a gun in his hand. He's got a code word he needs him to say, a little phrase. And he comes in, but the twist of the scene is that the friend turns around and shoots him, and then reveals that he's actually I don't know if we'd call him a shapeshifter, but at the very least he's got face tech.
Yeah.
So it's
immediately made me think of the question, right? Because of the gas up around the face, and yeah, he wears fake faces,
Yeah. Although I don't think it is the question, or
no, it's not the question.
Yeah.
It's declared as Nemesis, which Nemesis is just this weird character that I associate with Wonder Woman as the first person. It's like a double agent.
Well, to be fair, he says on this job my code name is Nemesis, and then later on he says my name on this job is whatever it was later. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. Yeah. So I feel like they're playing some games here as to who this guy actually is. So it could be some curious things there. But this guy's working for Hector Hammond. As a contractor, he was hired to come and find this device and kill this guy who was making it, and that's kind of setting up some plot. And now Hammond wants him to find Joe. That's his next mission. So it's like, okay, this is a cool introduction to this character. He feels threatening, he feels intimidating, and then it's like, oh, now he's on the trail of our main character. And then that leads us in nicely to actually catching up with Joe and Cameron, who immediately start bickering, immediately start throwing little jabs about, Cameron says, oh, your boyfriend's still asleep on my couch, and she's like, not my boyfriend. And then some of their tensions kind of rise up and whatnot. So, in fact, hell, I mean, Joe gets pissed and says, oh, now you want to stick around now that we're not a couple? Like, you don't just abandon me like you did when we were married? Which is interesting because Joe's the one that ended up cheating. So it's kind of interesting that she doesn't even feel like she's on the... because I think most people in this situation would probably expect that Cameron would have the moral high ground because she's not the one who cheated. But I feel like Joe's got a lot of pent-up rage here about what drove her to cheating in the first place, and even calls out this idea that, hey, I got into the city, I was this fresh new person who was just discovering herself, and she's not accusing her of like preying on her, right? She even specifically says that, but this idea that all your affection and attraction completely swallowed me up, and I fell for all of it. And then once time went past, though, I saw who you were and that you're dedicated to your work and there's never any time for anyone else, and so on and so on. So,
I do like how this argument comes around where you're kind of like, okay, these are typical what you would read in comic, but then they're a lot more nuanced with that, where the whole, oh, so now you want to stay? And I'm like, oh, what does she mean by that? And then you get into that where, no, she was always at work. And she did all this stuff to ingratiate herself to Joe, but then was never around. And then from Joe's perspective, it's like, well, what was I supposed to do? I was lonely and whatever. And then just the way that Chase then goes immediately into work right? When Joe starts explaining stuff. So it's almost like Chase can't help it. That's just kind of who she is.
Yeah,
right. I do kind of like that.
Yeah, and I also like that her describing this about Chase lines up with the fact that you know, in that flashback issue where she was basically getting ready to break up with her, but then Chase proposed, right? And it was, I think that lines up with this idea of the love bomb, as she calls it. You love bombed me. And it's like, just as she thought she was starting to have her doubts, she got proposed to, and then that just kind of like ensured the love bomb kept going for a little bit. So, but yeah, she talks about Tomar Ray a lot here, because she's like, hey, what did you see in that vision? Keep telling me. And he's like,
who's that bird guy?
Yeah, the bird guy. And it's like, yeah, Tomar Ray, he could see me and I could see him. He's an anomaly like me, but he's got the red level of power. And it's like, okay, this is interesting. She's starting to like voice out some of the things we've been seeing and kind of elaborating on them a little bit. Also, Tomar Ray's a bit more buff looking in the Absolute Universe. I was what to say. It's interesting.
He looks almost like a warrior monk kind of deal, you know?
Yeah, I can see that. So the big thing that happens here, though, is Chase says, wait, so your wedding ring, and I thought she was going to bring up, wait, you're still wearing your wedding ring? And she didn't bring it up, but I suspect that it might come up at some point later. But she's like, okay, so your ring absorbed the Green Lantern power from Abin Sur. Take off the ring. We have to address here, are you what's special? Is the power in you, or is the power in the ring? So Joe takes the ring off, and sure enough, her green glow disappears, and she looks normal. And she says she feels normal. So Cameron grabs the ring, puts it on, and then punches through a table and says, you know, I'm so adrenaline filled right now that I might have been able to do that anyway. Maybe the ring gave me a little bit of extra juice, but I think it's pretty clear that I don't feel like you do when you're wearing it. So it is a you thing. It's not just that anyone can put on this ring and suddenly they're making constructs and firing energy blasts and whatever else. So I was like, you know what? I'm glad you're establishing this. I'm glad we're saying, hey, this isn't just something that's like a magic thing that anyone can put on and just suddenly, that's it.
Well, and then she tells her too, when she hands it back, we know what makes you vulnerable. And that coming from the ex handing the ring back as well. There's so many layers there. But
notably says, put it back on because you're vulnerable without that ring now. So no, I like that. I like that part of it because I enjoyed their bickering. Like I thought that was good character stuff. But I think this part was really good. Of like, okay, we've spent so much time just doing stuff in this book and having us theorize about how this works in this world, and we've explained some of it to an extent. But I love that we're at a point now where characters are just saying, okay, what are the rules here? How does this actually function? How is this going to work going forward?
Right.
And it feels that they're actually starting to address that a little bit.
And I like that it comes from someone like Chase because she's at the DEO. She sees weird stuff all the time. So of course she goes immediately into, how does this thing work? What are the rules? How can this hurt me? How can I exploit this to do whatever? So again, I just thought it was a really good pairing here, because the fact that she goes in from that super uncomfortable conversation with her ex into work stuff too, it just kind of shows a piece of her character.
I mean, it's what she even says, like, you've become work. Like, you're now my work. So now she has time for her. Like, that's something that is addressed. And there's a great panel at the end of the scene when Chase leaves and says, hey, stay away from the windows, don't let anyone see you, stay hidden, where she's just left, like Joe's just left in the apartment on her own, and it's this wide shot, and you can see like these mirrors on either side of the room, so she's perfectly symmetrically framed, and she's just left on her own saying, oh, I'm still being left behind here, like on my own. And she feels alone in the panel. Like, it does a good job of making it feel the isolation of like being left behind like a pet or something, you know? So then we go to a scene with the leader of the DEO, and Baz and his partner. Now, his partner's not Jessica Cruz, which was something we were maybe theorizing a little
Agent
bit.
Limbo.
Yes. Now, this is a character, right? This is a character from DC.
Hey, I got to. I'll look it up. I didn't look that up. I got distracted by why the hell Simon is wearing a mask.
Well, because she started talking about her powers, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is definitely a character that I just isn't springing to mind. So Simon's wearing a mask. We noticed that last issue, or whatever issue he was in, briefly, and she asked the partner asked him about it, and it's something to do with he can't take it off if he ever sees his own face. He'll
cease to exist.
Yeah, after a fight with Dr. Silence, and I'm like, also there's lore as to why he's wearing a mask. That's okay. That's different. I love it. But all right.
Yeah. Because when we saw him wearing the mask, I was like, oh, it's just on the job type stuff, right? He's whatever for whatever reason. And then they're in here across the desk from the boss. I'm like, why? This is not like on the job type stuff. And then that thing, he's like, oh, it's a minor ailment. And then Limbo looks over, is like, that's minor to you? Like, you know, so real quick, Carrie Limbo is a character. She was a fortune teller with limited precognition who was the first love of Guy Gardner.
Oh, God. All right.
Yep. So again, another, first appearance was in Green Lantern Volume 2, number 117.
Another deep cut Green Lantern side character.
Yep. And that's what her powers are. It's limited precognition. She tells her boss, like, I'm not a telepath. I can just kind of get vibes of what's going to happen. So again, it establishes that real quick.
Then why don't you start dating Guy Gardner?
He has that charm to him,
No, it doesn't.
It worked on ice. I'm just saying that. But Chase even mentions this thing. Is like, I don't know if I can fully trust the main boss, but Simon's as good as anybody. And then we immediately get like, I was getting like dirtbag vibes from this guy, from the boss. Just the way that he's sitting across the desk from them, the way that he's talking.
He comes across super like corporate and sleazy, to be honest, the entire time.
Yeah, sleazy. That's the word.
Yeah, because Simon, like, they're reviewing the footage from the cop that Hal disintegrated back in like issue 1 or 2, and saying, oh, he disappeared, the camera went static for a second, then he was gone. However, when we've looked into this guy, he's got photos with Joe, who was my partner's ex-wife. I've been to their wedding. I know who this is. So he's basically piecing things together, and the boss says, oh, great work. But Simon also admits, like, no, I don't know where, I've not talked to Cameron about this, or if Cameron knows anything about this or is involved with it. But to be frank, I wouldn't tell you if I did, because I guess his loyalty to his partner means something to him. So he's like, but he just openly says that, and the boss is like, well, I'll keep that in mind. But the boss immediately calls someone and says, I've got a possible location. Basically, he's figured out that, hey, she might be hiding at Cameron Chase's place if they've got a connection. So, and sure enough, like, the very next scene pretty much is, Joe's sitting there trying to recount everything that she saw in her visions, and there's a knock at the door. It looks like Jon Stewart, but obviously at the start of the issue we were introduced to someone who can change his face. So lo and behold, she opens the door and immediately a gunshot, and Joe takes a hit. And
it's from a golden gun as well, right? Which we know is the weakness.
Yeah. Well,
to the green.
Specifically, the important part's the golden bullet. I don't know if the color of the gun matters as much, but
well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I was, it's the golden bullet shot from the golden gun, and he's all in gold. And I was like, for a second, I was just like, oh, is this like a thing from Oa? Right? This is John trying to come back and get her, but no, it was our shape-changing villain.
Yeah, no, because basically, and he sort of like gives out his reasoning. He's like, hey, on social media, there was a bunch of photos with you and this guy, so I assumed you'd trust him. So, and lo and behold, I was right. And he's like, hey, my code name on this is Goldface, and that's what he is at the end of the issue, a full-page spread. And she's been shot twice at the end of this issue. She does have the green glow around her, so maybe the green, lantern light will protect her or heal her a little bit, or at least stop her from dying at the very least. But yeah, she's left in a pretty bad predicament here at the end. I wonder if this is going to be a case of like her and Chase are going to bond, because Chase is going to come back and have to like defend her and try and help her with this guy, or maybe Hal will wake up. I mean, I really don't know how this is going to play out from this cliffhanger. But
yeah, for sure. And yeah, Goldface is an old established Green Lantern villain.
Yes,
he's a crime lord.
Yeah, I felt like this reveal at the end was maybe more akin to what he is, but if Nemesis is also a character, then maybe they're playing a little bit fun here, where they're like, oh, we're going to have one character who kind of becomes like 3 or 4 D-list villains because he's all of them, kind of thing.
because they call him Keith early on after the Nemesis job, and then he introduced himself as Keith here, and he also makes a big deal about using the call signs.
Yes,
so I feel like this will be a thing that's important to him, like the different identities.
I would expect we'll see at least one more identity that's also a real D tier villain that I've not heard of.
Yeah. Yep. So, which I really liked, because I did not see Goldface coming, like, despite the fact of all that, the last time I had seen Goldface, it was pretty Blackest Night type stuff, So, for Ewing to pull all of these characters out, I really appreciate doing the homework, but then putting these spins on them as well, is fun.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I remember Goldface from anything in particular, but I think, the art in this issue obviously is different than normal. It's not bad. Like, I think there's definitely some really solid moments, particularly in the expressions with the characters, and to be fair, this is a very conversational issue, so it's good that stuff is working. It is definitely a different style, though, to normal, so it did feel a bit strange, because this definitely felt like a main chapter, so it's a shame that the regular artist wasn't on it, but the art's not bad. There was maybe a couple times where it felt like they were doing a little bit too much of the, like, Cameron Tracy's ponytail was kind of snaking up in a really unnatural way, or something like that, But it's a minor quibble, I guess, all things considered.
Yeah. Oh, and I gotta give credit here, though, that the mask on Simon looks pretty good. Right? It could really run that line of looking real goofy, but they make it work really well. So, big fan of that. But yeah, then for a lot of it, it's a conversation between Joe and Cameron, and I feel like a lot of that art looks pretty good. A lot of breakdowns that are traditional. So
yeah, but even the scene after that, the DEO is again, it's a conversation. Yeah. Like it's pretty much all conversation stuff, right? Yeah. Even the start and the end are mostly conversation as well, just with a couple of gunshots sprinkled in.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I think the expressions are really good. I wouldn't say that the art is necessarily like super great to my taste per se, but I do think it really gets the point across in what the characters are trying to express or feel like constantly throughout the issue, and that was important for this issue. So I think it nails the storytelling element, even if it's not necessarily the most visually pleasing to my eye, just in terms of a style overall. Which bizarrely is actually how I feel about the regular art in this book usually, to be honest. It's just different than the normal art, but
a different way.
Yeah, so hey, all right, what are you giving Absolute Green Lantern issue 8?
I'm gonna give this one a 7.5.
I'm gonna go 8.
Okay.
Yeah, I quite like this issue. Quite liked it. Digging on how they're advancing things and moving things forward.